Event.
I think, Rachel, at this point, you should be in the event.
Yes, now I am. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday MSP Acceleration Conversations. I'm Rachel James, the Director of Community at VCIO Toolbox, and I'm joined with Brian Doyle, our co founder. We come to you each week with a different topic to help you drive account management momentum, uplevel your client relationships, and provide increasingly greater value to your customers. So if you're here now live with us, we'd love for you to drop a comment on Facebook or say hi to us in the chat if you're on Zoom, just so we know who we're talking to, because that's always fun. And if you have to leave early for any reason, or if you join us later, or if you're seeing this in a Facebook group later, you can always catch it on the VCIO Toolbox YouTube channel, as well as past conversations that we've had. So today, we are continuing our talk about building the office of the VCIO and how you can grow a team to deliver the best customer experience and just make your MSP irreplaceable. Today, we're talking about executive involvement in the office of the VCIO. So, Brian, I know you have lots of ideas about who from the executive team should support the office of the VCIO. So, if you want to take it away with that.
Yep, and for those that are just joining us, the concept of the Office of VCIO is really, it's tough to find that unicorn, that person that can be the VCIO and have the business skills, the technical skills, and really drive each part of the equation. So what we've really been talking about is how do you architect where your whole team can be part of your customer experience and delivery to your customers. And similar to what they do in the enterprise, really have the VCIO be kind of the program manager or the quarterback to this process. And then there's involvement of other groups. So if this is your first time joining us today, we've talked about the VCIO's role. We've talked about the role of the engineer as part of the Office of VCIO. We've talked about the VCSO's role in the emergence of security conversations and MSSP services as well. And then today we're going to talk about the executive role. And those are really the four primary roles that exist within the Office of VCIO. This will be a topic we talk about throughout the year here at VCIO Toolbox. And if you've missed a couple of these videos in the past, please, I encourage you to go up to YouTube, because really each person has a role, but they all link together. And they really help you build a strong team and a strong customer experience where they feel that engagement, where they really know, hey, this company has our best interests in mind at all times. I'm struggling on that word. But today we're going to talk a little bit about, the Office of VCIO. And as you mentioned, Rachel, I've got some ideas of who should be on that executive team. Let's start first with the concept of not all MSPs are the same shape or same size, just like our customers, right? We all are in a different point within our evolution, right? We've got MSPs that certainly work with us that are smaller and just getting started and looking to bring that executive or that advisory layer from day one. We have more mature MSPs that have mastered their service delivery, might deal with a little bit larger client, and they've got their approach to VCIO that's starting to emerge as well. So when we talk about executive support, it's very similar to kind of the executive sponsor. Who is the executive sponsor that's responsible for kind of being the buck that stops here in some respects, for the customer? So for a smaller MSP that's still owner-led and kind of sales and account management, that might be you, the owner. You'll retain this role. Obviously, all things stop with you. And in this model, you are the executive sponsor as well as maybe the VCIO. But you got to wear a couple different hats in that process. You may be the executive sponsor when you have to escalate, when you have to make commitments. You might be the VCIO when you're an advocate and bringing it back to the office. But ultimately, you're kind of supporting the account at large, and you're the person that they know they can go to. When you start graduating up to that mid-tier MSP, where you've got a formal executive team, it's no longer just owner-led. Maybe you've brought in a couple VP layers, or at least direct, service, however you term those kind of categories. I mean, it's not so corporate, EVP, SVP, and all that. But you've got your leadership team, if you will. At that stage, you might want to delegate the sponsorship role to those leaders. And part of the reason that you can do that is because they've got some juice, if you will, and the customer recognizes they have some juice. So this lets the owner kind of step away from it a little bit, do what they're supposed to be doing, which is really concentrating on the growth of the business. Don't be in the business, work on the business. We've all heard that concept plenty of times. And now your executive team can step in. Now, the final kind of role of the executive sponsor really falls into those larger MSPs. As we all know, there's a huge movement where private equity is starting to do a lot more acquisition, building much more regional-based MSPs with teams there. And at that stage, you really want to be looking at the executive leader that's in that regional pocket, or might be the GM for that branch, really being that executive sponsor. They should be supporting the needs of the day-to-day VCIO team. They should be in tune with what's going on, and they certainly should be working on benefit of the customer knowing that they're the person they can go to. So that's really
Great.
how we kind of see the roles being dissected, Rachel.
That's awesome. You keep saying this executive sponsor. Can you kind of define that a little more
Yes.
and dive into that?
Yep. Yeah. I love the concept of executive sponsor, right? It's really who is putting their weight behind this program being successful, right? So the executive sponsor is the person responsible from a management team level, from a leadership team level, in making sure that whatever you define your VCIO role to be, whether it's just simple TBRs, or if you're going to technology business reviews, or if you're going to the full scale, management of your customer at many layers, QBRs, actually running a security program, maybe even engaging in customer experience. It's the person that is really sponsoring that process. They're also the person, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, where the ultimate buck stops here. They've got the juice within the organization to make commitments that might be financial in nature, might be time-bound in nature, that your VCIO or some of the people on the team just can't commit to themselves. So let's say there's a problem going on at the customer side, your VCIO's made you aware of it, you step in to get there. That person has to have the ability to make commitments to that end user and then stand behind those commitments no matter what they be or what the cost may be, within reason, right? They're also the main escalation point for the team internally. So we want to make sure that that as they are working on this process, that they are the person that is really able to determine this is a severity 1. I'm going to get my best people involved in this. I don't care what else they're doing. They can pull resources from different areas. Or they can go up to the CEO if they're in one of those secondary models I told you about, that mid-tier MSP or larger MSP. And they can go to that CEO and go, hey, I've made this commitment. We got to get it done. Now you need to stand behind me if we need to get board approval, if we're at that stage of our growth trajectory. They also need to be the quarterback. They then have to tell the resources how the customer needs to be communicated to. One of the biggest challenges we see when things start going sideways is the simple problem where nobody is communicating to the customer. Now, this might be the executive sponsor themselves, depending on the severity, or the executive sponsor is going to have to make sure that the team is getting that information out, and then they need feedback from the team telling them when these intervals are happening so they can stay on top of it and not be blindsided if the customer picks up the phone. They're basically all, and then the other thing now gets past that severity 1 moment and really dives into kind of what that relationship needs to be with the customer over time. They need to be the executive liaison to the customer. They can't be invisible and just come in times of trouble. When I worked, so I'm going to come at this 2 different ways. I spent most of my career in the MSP space, and due to the fact that we had data centers, I dealt with, traditional SMB environment, but we had mid-tier and enterprise customers in our environment too. And our CEO, when I left my MSP that we successfully exited from, and I played the role of a hired gun in growing a large regional VAR into a services practice, I reported into the CEO there. So I was expected to be the executive sponsor for the majority of our mid-size and enterprise level clients. I did the lunches, the dinners, I did most of those things. But at least once or twice a year, my CEO would join me, we'd do in a dinner where we really sat down, and that was the meeting that would attract the executives we didn't necessarily get in the room for TBRs. Now, you're not going to do this with every customer, but you need to do it with your large scale customers and really hear, hey, where's the business headed? What can we do better? How are you seeing the marketplace? This is where a CEO or your next level of executive sponsor, or you as the executive sponsor, can get insight into what they're seeing in the business world. Maybe they've identified some trends that are ahead of where you are, and you can jump on that bandwagon and start providing those services to them. So you really want to make sure you've got this engagement that happens in a totally informal, of course it's got a meeting drive, and in a social kind of way. So their guard is, I won't say down, but they're not. It's the radar is not up as high on your
Sure.
conversation, and we can really engage with these folks in a human level, right? We sometimes forget about the human side. So that was kind of my MSP side of it. Now I'm going to reverse the switch. I was a VP in a Fortune 6 healthcare firm for a while. So I was the guy that was getting QBRs delivered to from my vendors as well. And what that really showed me is to be a good partner to my vendors. I also had to understand what their challenges were. So the executive sponsor has to be real also in these meetings. You don't want to open up the kimono to where things are broken, let's say. But you got to be real on, hey, look, we need to do a price increase with you, and here's why. Because when you start looking at your customers, they need you as much as you need them. Yes, there are other partners out there, but there's a transition and a cost of service that happens with that.
Yeah.
So if you're not achieving what your goals are with that customer, they need to be a good partner to you. So I learned very quickly, when we were preparing business reviews or preparing to have our business reviews delivered to us, it was really more about, hey, how can we be a better steward back to the customer? And you've got to help guide them there. I mean, I'll be honest, it was kind of a interesting thing for me because I had my way of running QBRs, and then I saw how my vendors ran QBRs back to me, and I realized very quickly I wasn't asking enough of my customers, especially my big ones, before I went to those QBRs. I was trying to bring everything to them. But there's nothing wrong with asking your customers for input, trying to set the table and understand what they need up front. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the executive sponsor role.
Great. You
That's
said
why.
something that stuck out to me. You said that you didn't. This executive sponsor needs to make sure that they're not just showing up when things go wrong. And you gave an example of these like dinners and that sort of thing. But I'm sure you have more examples of how what else the executive sponsor can be doing throughout the course of the year in order to support the office of the VCIO.
No doubt. Another thing that you got to think about is we have our traditional marketing efforts that go on with our business. And that's great for what that is for, right? We're telling folks about what we might be doing. We're telling folks about what we'd like to do, things like that. But we're not telling, marketing products, things like that. But what we're not doing is being kind of real with them and being human with them. So what we really want to do, Rachel, is think about activities we can do as the executive sponsor to that small collective group of people. One great example is writing a newsletter specifically to those customers you're an executive sponsor on. It doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be wordy, but it's a monthly newsletter where I can come in and say, hey, dear Rachel, thank you for being a great customer to VCIO Toolbox. What I want to do is keep you status on some things that are going on in the industry, some things that I think are important for executives like yourself to understand. This is not a marketing moment for your company per se, but what you're going to share with them is maybe some of the emerging cyber threats, or maybe you can talk to them about some automation capabilities that are available to you. But the biggest thing you want to do is kind of share, hey, and this is where the executive team is looking to take our organization and grow the support with you. So if you got those customers who don't necessarily know how you're progressing and might be questioning some of your value as the curse of the great MSP sets in, and we automate things really well, and we do things remotely really well, and things don't break anymore and we're not on site, that value doesn't get called into question. The executive can be empowered to share a little tidbit about some of the new programs that are coming that the rank and file haven't been made privy to yet. So we want to make sure that you've got some sort of engagement process so you can share with them how the company's looking to enhance their services, wins you may have had that instill confidence to your clients that you're going to be there for the long haul, and how you're investing into your company. And again, you don't have to disclose everything, but it's great to kind of share that information with them. You know, and the other thing is just pick up the phone from time to time. Call those key clients 30 seconds. I mean, an executive sponsor might only have 20 or 30 clients they're responsible for. Pick 2 a month and just once a year pick up the phone and talk to them in between these other activities that go on, and just go, hey, wanted to call, wanted to say hi, no agenda here, just wanted to see how we're doing. Anything I can help you with? Anything that I need to know about from the team? Are any concerns there? It could be a 5-minute phone call, but people want to know that you have reached out to them and that you've talked to them. So, that in a nutshell kind of sums up what the executive sponsor role is, in my opinion, Rachel, and what people should be thinking about when they are putting together their QBR plans. It's not just this singular meeting. It's not this singular resource. You really have to look at how can the whole team contribute to building the greatest customer experience possible.
Amazing. And like we mentioned earlier, if you missed our previous discussions about building the Office of the VCIO, they're all on our YouTube channel, the VCIO Toolbox YouTube channel. And if you're joining us on Zoom, we have the MSP Customer Success Facebook group where all of these live forever. And we're also building a community of account managers and MSP owners to really support each other in all of our customer relationships and just making them the best that they can be.
Yeah, guys, we really want to give you a forum to talk to us, whether you're a VCIO Toolbox customer or not. We should all be engaging with our customers. It's not always about the platform, it's about the process. So join the MSP Success Group. Ask questions. That's what we're really looking for. We want to know how we can help. Rachel will tell you I got 1,000 opinions, but we want to hear how we
Only
can help you.
1,001. That's
1,001.
all.
You're being kind. I think there's others in my house that might differ with you, but quite candidly, we want to be a resource to help you. The byproduct is, yes, we are a software company. We would love for you to be part of our world there, but if not, we want to make sure that we're helping build the community, and it's our way of giving back to a community that quite candidly served me personally well for 15, 16 years before I started this, and for Rachel, it's certainly a big part of her life now too.
Yes, it is. Wonderful. Well, if you have any questions and you're joining us live, feel free to drop them in the comments on Facebook or in the chat on Zoom. We're going to hang out here for just like a minute or so just to see if anyone has any questions. In the meantime, we will be doing this again next week. I think the week after that, Brian, you are out of
week
town.
of the 13th, there will be no Tuesday coaching. There will be no, acceleration session. But have no fear. We may record something and just put it out there for you anyway. I also want to state that if you're not doing anything later today, we have a great session upcoming with Bill Stucklin. For those of you that don't know him, he runs Stack Advisors and MSP Toolshed, two emerging process automation organizations in the MSP space. Here we talk a lot about advisory. Obviously, that's in our DNA, being that trusted advisor to our customer. But if you listen to the analysts out in the marketplace today, if you listen to, if you see what's going on, and if you look inside your own businesses and how much you're trying to automate yourselves, automation is key. So if you're able to join us, that's at 2 p.m. Eastern today. That's at 11 a.m. We've had Bill on the podcast with us too. If you're not listening to MSP Business School podcast, jump in there too. Promoting like hell today. But,
hey, you know what? We have lots of learning opportunities, and we just want everyone to know about them because more education is never a bad thing.
But definitely join us with Bill today. For those of you that have joined us via Zoom, I'll be happy to send you a personal link if you'd like to join that today. And, and for those on Facebook, we'll drop that link right here into the comments. But if you've got some time, register. And even if you don't have some time, register anyway so we can make sure we get you a copy of the recording.
Absolutely. Well, I think that is it for us for this morning.
Rachel, as always, thank you.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you.
and for those that joined us today, really appreciate you coming in and being a part of a half hour here. And we hope you join us again next week. Take care, everyone.